Today is International Holocaust Remembrance Day. It's an event marked around the world, including in Canada. But a new study found that many Canadians do not know basic facts about the genocide. The study was put together by the Claims Conference, which negotiates restitution for Holocaust victims and their families, and the Israeli Foundation, which supports Holocaust education. Some of the major findings include 43% of respondents were not sure when asked to name a concentration camp or ghetto. 6% gave an incorrect answer. 45% of Canadians also said they agreed with the statement the Holocaust could happen again. The study involved just over 1,000 interviews with Canadian adults by phone and online. Joining us for a look at this, a much closer look, Eli Rubenstein. Now, he is a Holocaust educator and founder of the March for Remembrance and Hope, which teaches students about the dangers of intolerance through the study of the Holocaust. Eli, thanks for joining us. Let's talk about this reaction to the survey about what Canadians do or don't know about the history of the Holocaust.
Well, it was both surprising and saddening at the same time, and it reminded me of what somebody once said about the difference between the sciences and humanities. In the sciences, we can rely on a small group of experts in society, whether it's medicine or physics, engineering, to pass on the knowledge to another small group in society for the benefit of everybody else. Not all of us have to be experts in nuclear physics or engineering or medicine to make these progresses felt throughout society. But that's not the case with human rights. Despite the progress we've made with human rights in every generation, we have to start anew. Every time a child is born, we have to teach him or her about the inherent sanctity and dignity of every human life. Otherwise, these racist ideologies can be adopted and it gets spread like wildfire. So we have to start anew in every generation. This study is a reminder of that.
Yeah, because this study does seem to indicate there is a gap between older and younger generations. Is that the failing of parents, of educators, of public libraries? Who's to blame for this?
Well, I will say that I don't like to blame the younger generation. You know, many of us lived during the Holocaust era of World War II, or we were surrounded by people or grew up with people with numbers in their arms who shared with us firsthand about what happened during those terrible times. The young people, and you can't really blame them, take their freedoms for granted. They take human rights and democratic norms with which we live under as a given, and they don't realize how truly thin the veneer of civilization is and how easy it is for a country or society to give up its democratic values. So we have to remind them that they should never take for granted the democratic rights they have in Canada. They should protect it at all costs and how easily it could slip away. So it's our responsibility to educate the next generation. I don't blame them, I blame us, and we have a lot of work to do.
You talk about that thin veneer. We live in a time where the accumulated knowledge of all of humanity can be contained in the palm of your hand effectively. And yet we live in a time where there are chat rooms, there are conspiracy theories, there is the rise of the alt-right, and the internet seems to have given new voice to greater ignorance out there. What role do you think it has played and could play maybe for good in educating people?
Well, as you just said, the internet is a tool. It can be used for good and for bad. And there is a rising tide of Holocaust denial, which is quite scary. It either reflects a staggering ignorance or, even more frightening, the desire of people to commit another Holocaust or another genocide. So we have to marshal all the tools of the internet and Facebook and social media to turn the world in the right direction.
Looking ahead, what do you think will happen in terms of the awareness of Canadians, and what do you think should happen?
I think one of the critical aspects that we need to do is expose our children to the stories of the Holocaust survivors. One of the survivors I work with, Max Eisen, would talk about Passover Seder in Hungary of 1944 when they were celebrating freedom with his family, and within minutes the Hungarian gendarmes broke down the doors and every single one of his human rights and that of his family was stripped. Max knows that that can happen every moment, and every student who's ever heard Max speaks knows that as well. So we need to get our young students to listen to survivors like Max in person, and if not, access educational resources of organizations like the Israeli Foundation to listen to other survivors tell their story. There's many goals of Holocaust education, but the most important goal is to tell the story. And once students hear their stories, they will be awakened to the need to protect our democratic norms. And I would like to quote Anne Frank, who once said, "Despite everything, she believes that people are good at heart." And people are good at heart. But that's not good enough. We have to stop the extremist ideologies from spreading to the people who are good at heart and teach them the right lessons about human freedom, dignity, and value.